The reason I'm making this is because my fiancés and I need help with a situation on September 3rd that recently came to our attention. My fiancé's parents are extremely religious, but they've been worse to his sister, 15, than him. When he was growing up, they didn't force him to attend like her, and he admits that he was a golden child. He would miss church/youth because of sports, and their relationship was fine when he moved out because they weren't as strict on him. He was allowed to work and have secular friends, and they didn't make him do purity like she did. But we were recently made aware of something that will make us rescind their invitation before cutting them out of our lives, but we want to ask for advice before doing that. His dad made a Facebook rant about how he discovered his sister being gay due to parental controls showing search history, and he also ranted about the importance of them as such. He also said he spoke to someone at church and that she probably will too. However, on September 3rd, she's going to be prayed over during service, and we're worried about her/how it seems she's being made to apologize, and we want to ask if there's anything we can do. The church is fairly big with over 1,000. We're going to uninvite anyone who attends that Sunday in agreement with her parents, but the wedding isn't our priority right now. Is there anything we can do to help her out of this situation while we still have a connection with her parents? We'd especially appreciate to hear from anyone who might have been in similar situations with unacceptable parents. Edit. We live in New York, and the church where his sister is being forced to receive prayer at/apologize is on Long Island, NY. Update 1. My fiancé was able to call his dad shortly after my first post, and he asked if we'd be able to come up and see them this week. He didn't get into a confrontation on the phone because we figured that would hurt our chances of seeing her, or risk being cut off for disagreeing, thus why we haven't rescinded their wedding invitations or anything hasty. He asked if we could come to attend church with them on Sunday in light of the post, and he said we could come on Saturday and spend the night along with doing something on Saturday afternoon. So as of right now, we plan to drive up on Saturday morning. We live a few hours away, and we talked to one of our friends for advice that we're close with about what to do once we're there, but we're hoping to find some more advice because we're debating some ideas for Saturday, and we're open to any suggestions we get. The reason we asked if we could go to church with them was because of an idea I had, but I want to ask about it here. My fiancé asked if we could take her shopping when we go, and we've taken her shopping in the past without her parents. If she states that she doesn't feel comfortable with what her parents are making her do at church, would that be enough to drive her somewhere else like a hotel or back to our place to avoid it if she wants? Or would that interfere with any chances of being able to legally take her in before she's 18? Some people commented that she should be old enough to not go to church/anywhere if she doesn't want to, but would her parents have grounds to accuse us of kidnapping and take her back? That's where we're at so far, and we're considering a lawyer too and have looked up some this week that we're considering reaching out to. I'm also going to share this on a legal sub, but we're open to any advice we can get and especially from anyone who's been through something similar. Edit. We just received advice on our/legal advice that answered our questions in regards to our ideas, and we will not be taking her to our home or anywhere due to legal concerns. We're still planning to visit to see how she is and are considering reaching out to an LGBTQ organization for support as some commenters suggested, and this is the advice we received. Update 2. I wasn't able to update sooner because the past few weeks have been challenging, but we received a lot of great advice along with one in particular I'll highlight momentarily. A lot of people said that we needed to reach out to an actual family lawyer for advice instead of Reddit, and that's what we've done since our previous post. The reason we came to our/legal advice initially was because we had less than a week until his sister would basically be outed to the church. As stated in our update, and later echoed by the lawyer we found, we understand that trying to remove his sister from the situation, on 9/3, would have been a terrible idea that could have resulted in his parents pressing charges for kidnapping, and that was an emotional idea that many shot down rightfully in our update, after many suggested taking her for a drive to remove her from that Sunday on our first post. When 9/3 came, we were able to stay at her parents' home for the weekend after my fiancé received permission in our update post, and we had a chance to talk to her parents on Saturday too. But before we get into what was said, someone in our update made a comment suggesting that we don't rock the boat with her parents and instead try to show his sister a healthy, straight relationship so that we can be a part of her life and give her somewhere to vent as she may very well need. We both liked this idea and decided not to rock the boat when we saw them, but my fiancé has struggled in the aftermath of that weekend, which I'll get to later. Long story short, her parents told us that they're gonna have her talk to someone, a leader, at church about her being gay, and they said that they received prayer from others who saw the Facebook post along with those they called to vent. The only thing we challenged them on was why they felt the need to out her on Facebook, to which her father said that she needed support from others who would basically talk her out of it/pray on their own. When we suggested trying to be a good example of a straight couple, They liked the idea and said they hoped our wedding would be a good example for her too. They also said that college would be off the table for her unless she showed change, and that's on top of privileges they took away too. We weren't able to talk to her one-on-one on Saturday because she stayed mostly in her room aside from greetings, and she ate dinner in her room as well. And when Sunday came, she rode in her parents' car while we followed them to church. At some point after worship, one of the pastors invited them to come on stage, and they basically prayed for her while laying hands for about 5 minutes. My fiancé said it was short and similar to how they dedicated babies occasionally on Sunday morning and had the newborn be prayed over by a pastor. The only difference was that a pastor told the congregation that she was struggling with her sexuality, and the prayer involved rebuking worldly influences/friends and types of media that they think played a role in it. In regards to his sister, she kept a straight face and wasn't crying or anything, and they didn't ask her to say anything either. Her parents also took us to lunch afterwards, and she was rather quiet/on her phone despite her parents telling her she did great and so forth. We left shortly after lunch because we had work on Monday, but her parents agreed to hang out with us again soon. And when I asked if we could try to talk to her ourselves to try and get through to her, they said we could next time we came over, although things have been difficult with my fiancé since. My fiancé really wanted to go to support his sister, and he made the call to his dad to get permission to stay at their home over the weekend too. However, when some people came up to their family and talked to his sister/her parents after service, some people spoke to my fiancé and asked how he was, and he said it really bothered him a few days after. He grew up in that church, and he said that being there was somewhat traumatic when he didn't expect it to be. Some people asked why he stopped going among other things, but he's also had second thoughts about keeping in touch with his parents for his sister's sake since. Long story short, he said it was hard to not explode at them and play a face for those 2 days, and he's been hyper-focused on it the past few weeks too. He said the trauma's been eating at him when he's at work, and it's awoken some memories/trauma inside of him that he might have forgotten about since living away from them as an adult. He also wants to uninvite not just his parents, but every Christian relative he's aware of, from our wedding. I have no issue uninviting people from our wedding, and I also wanted to uninvite his parents, although we initially decided against it, to keep a connection with his sister. He says he wants to talk to a therapist, but not couples therapy because there's some trauma he never told me from his childhood, and I want to respect his space until he's ready to talk about it, or even if he never does. He thinks a therapist will tell him to put his upcoming marriage/mental health ahead of his sister, and I could see that honestly too. My commitment is first and foremost to him, as it's supposed to be upon marriage. But as for right now, he's looking for a therapist that'll work with his insurance, and I told him to do what's best for him first because it's hard to help others if he's hurting. The thing about put your gas mask on first, so we're just waiting to see what comes from therapy. Update 3. A lot of people rightfully called us out for doing nothing, in regards to trying to talk to his sister, when we visited his parents, and it bothered me that we didn't either. However, I wasn't fully truthful in my last post, and that's because I excluded some major details that I was insecure about at the time. As of writing this, my fiancé and I are no longer together, and I want to explain why along with the things I left out. Many people said we should have said something to his sister whenever she was alone, something along the lines of our support for her coming out and disagreeing with her parents. However, shortly after we arrived at his parents', he told me he regretted coming up and that being there was bringing back bad memories. He also said he was considering driving home on the first day we came. But when I tried to calm him down, he said he didn't want to help his sister because no one helped him when he was her age, and that if she were a boy, we'd tell her to man up and not pity her, and his whole attitude showed a new side of him I never saw before, which bothered me. He said that going back to their home triggered him, and he said he didn't want to talk to his sister, like we planned, because she was going to know what he felt when he was her age, and I excluded that argument previously because I was uncertain about my future with him afterwards. I was able to talk him out of leaving and suggested sleeping on his frustration. But after we went to service on Sunday, he became even angrier after people questioned why he stopped attending for so many years, and he said that triggered him worse than the night before. When I suggested talking to his sister without him after the service to support her, if he wasn't up to it, he said we'd be done if I did because no one helped him when he was her age. I argued that we couldn't come up and do nothing. But he kept his stance, and I regretted doing nothing and caving to him. Soon after, he said that the trauma from going back to his old church was eating him up at work along with regret from visiting them, and I was regretting doing nothing after we returned. Eventually, he told me that he wanted to break up because I prevented him from leaving the first night, which would have prevented him from going to church, and that was shortly after our visit. The breakup bothered me because of how quickly everything changed. He went from hating how his dad outed her, on Facebook, to completely changing his tone the moment we got there. Maybe something did trigger trauma upon going back to their home and especially their church, and one of my friends suggested there's a lot of generational trauma in their family. I was just stunned because he was ready to uninvite his parents / every Christian from the wedding out of anger towards his parents outing her, only to wish hardship on her once we arrived. Going back to his sister, I was able to find her on Instagram and sent her a message telling her the truth. I wasn't sure if I should tell her everything, considering her age, but my dad suggested being honest in case my ex / her parents blamed her for our breakup somehow. So I told her that we went up to offer support, but due to trauma my ex received in their home and church, he changed his mind because he was upset that nobody helped him, at her age, and I added how he told me not to talk to her either. I wrote that I was sorry for not trying to talk to her anyway and that I supported her and that nothing was her fault, along with how her parents were wrong to out her. And, surprisingly, she actually responded and said she appreciated me reaching out and opened up about a few things too. When I asked if she ever wanted to talk to a professional, she said she didn't think she'd be able to with her parents. But I gave her the link to the Trevor Project website that actually has 24/7 counselors she can chat / call for free, along with suggesting looking it up incognito or at a school computer, and she said she might sometime. We've messaged a few times here and there when something's on her mind, and I still regret not talking to her in person. But she's almost 16 now, although her parents revoked a sweet 16 that they previously offered after learning she came out, and she told me that in a message. I'm surprised that she felt comfortable to open up from time to time, but at least she's 1 year closer to being 18 and able to leave, and we still messaged from time to time. I'm not sure if anything will come from the Trevor suggestion, but I brought it up a few times, so maybe someday hopefully. She also said that things have calmed down with her parents who are no longer harassing her about being gay, and she said she's pretending not to be by going along with them for the most part. She also received some privileges that they took away, upon learning about it, after she cooperated with everything at the church, and she seems to be navigating things okay a few months after.